This is our garden. This is Salvia apiana plant here. This is your classic white sage that's native to Southern California. We grow it here. These are just about ready for picking. They're more or less at their peak right now. This is a plant that overwintered here. It's a little bit out of its zone. But the ones that overwinter and survive then make seed, and then you collect the seed from those, and then that's a northern hardy strain because there's already been selection in the garden. So yeah, this is probably the most aromatic of all the sages worldwide. Very sticky with resin. It's used by the native people for prayer and also in the sweat lodge, and it has all the properties of sage, the drying properties of sage, the antiseptic properties of sage. They're all in there. Really beautiful for smudging, for drying and smudging. Typical to make into sage wands. See, here we harvest it like this. Yum. Really delicious. I try to put seven of these tops into one wand. You have to dry them for a few days first until they're sort of leathery dry, and then you can bind them together. They'll never mold or rot. They'll last for years. When I do this, I always keep prayers of peace in mind also. And think about that all people deserve to live in peace, and how the garden is a receptor of peace and also an emitter of peaceful vibes, oxygen, food, medicine, out into the universe. Really, really positive tuning fork for peace worldwide. Salvia apiana, Native American white sage. I love this stuff.
Hello, Richo.
Hi, Dave. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Nice to be here.
Feels good to be in the garden, eh?
I know. It was great. We had a break in the weather, too. There's been a lot of rain lately, I understand.
The rain was a blessing for us and for the few cover crops that we put in, and it softened the ground so we can dig up an ashwagandha root here.
Ashwagandha. Well, let's take a look at that. That's a real interesting plant. Why don't you tell us about that?
Ashwagandha is Latin Withania somnifera. The English call it winter cherry. And in Ayurveda, it's used as a adaptogenic root tonic that's good for building energy. And it's also a sexual tonic and considered to be one of the herbs that helps, for instance, malnourished people put on weight and this kind of thing. And the main part that is used, although all parts of the plant are used, the main part that's used is the root. Now, this is a tropical plant that we grow here in the temperate north as an annual. And as you can see by these white tops, it's been frosted back already. We've had a couple of frosts here in southern Oregon. And we've already made our seed pick. The seed occurs in these little red fruits that are a lot like a tomato. The berries occur in this inflated calyx, which is fairly characteristic of, for instance, a ground cherry, which would be in the same class. And these are orange. They're not quite ripe because the red ones have already been picked. But there it is, the tomato-like berry. These are used in traditional medicine for coagulating milk. They have the property of coagulating milk, so they're used in cheese making. And there are the seeds, which is the part that, as a seed company, we're really interested in. These we would clean, wash, and dry, and then package up and send out to people who want to grow ashwagandha. This is a solanaceous plant, so it's in the potato-tomato family. And these red fruits contain the seeds, multiple seeds. So we've already made our seed harvest, and now that there's been a frost, it's time to dig up the roots, because the roots won't perennialize here. And they're valuable to us and to people who will use them dried as medicine. So now's the time to dig the roots. We've had a nice rain, and We get the spade well underneath the plant. It was a decent growing year. We had a lot of hot weather, although we had a pretty cold spring. There it is there. There's the ashwagandha root. So this is slightly toxic as a fresh root, and then once dried it loses its toxicity and has more of an adaptogenic, immune stimulating kind of influence. Anabolic, it builds energy, has a very characteristic smell, and I'm glad to see that it is still alive and vibrant and has not started to rot in any way, because if it was rotten, we wouldn't be able to use it. So this we'll take and we'll wash it and then we'll dry it.
Let me hold it still and make it a close up of the root there.
Let me dig another one. I don't like this one so well.
Okay.
How it's doing. When we planted these in the spring, we put sand all around the crown to keep the crowns really dry, and to, I like the shape of this one better, and to mimic the desert growing conditions that this plant normally would have. There it is now, like that. It's almost ginseng-like, like a man root shape or a fleshy man root shape. And this in the Doctrine of Signatures would have some relation to its use as a sexual stimulant. There you go, ashwagandha. Then this is the leftover of skullcap harvest here. This is another Native American herb that actually is not used that much internationally. Skullcap is relatively unknown in the old world, but we use it here as a nervine, a tonic nervine, and it's also somewhat sedative. So this I had to carefully hand pick through here and weed and then strew organic compost on it, and then it finally grew up and made seed, and it's one of the last seed harvests that we take. And there's hardly any seed left, but if you rub through it, you can see a few small seeds. There's one right there. So there it is, right there. There's 20 or 30 seeds. Need to come through here and do this again. Extract every little bit of it.
Small ones, aren't they?
Yeah. To me, this is like panning for gold. You're extracting the very vital essence of the plant, and you're coming up with this tiny little golden thing that's left over after you've moved through all the herb. You get a small amount left over, and so then it's very valuable, more valuable than gold.
Well, that's really a big part of your work, isn't it? To save the seeds and propagate the seeds?
Absolutely. I mean, all the plants that we grow are known as open pollinated plants. They will breed true from one year into the next. And they're not hybridized, so it's not a fancy equation to get the seed to replant again. And a lot of times I think we're actually growing ourselves out of business, because when we sell the seed to somebody, then they can plant it and the next year they can harvest it themselves and they don't need to buy it from us again. But that's okay, I offer it up, I like that. We grow actually about 700 different species of plants here. I'm not talking about little subspecies differentiations, I'm talking about actual genus and species of plants, about 700 different ones. And so it's a vast job, and